What's up guys, my name is Ace, and welcome back to another gun guide. This is the series where I go into great detail with all of the stats of every one of the weapons in CoD World War II. In today's episode, we're going to be covering the GPMG LMG. First up, as always, let's have a look at some of the in real life stats. So the GPMG is actually the Breda 30, which is an Italian LMG that fires a 6.5x52 Carcano round at approximately 500 rounds per minute. In CoD World War II, the GPMG has a damage profile of 30-24, which means it's always going to be a 4 to 5 shot kill. However, when we look at the ranges, you'll know that this is actually almost always going to be a 4-shot kill because it has an extremely long 4-shot kill potential, and there are basically no lines of sight in this game that are going to extend into the 5-shot kill range. Our rate of fire is identical to the MG15 LMG at 722 rounds per minute, and with rapid fire we bump that up to 769 rounds per minute. Our statistical minimum time to kill is going to be 249 milliseconds within the 4-shot kill range, which, like I said, is going to be 99.9% of the gunfights in this game. And this time to kill is pretty good at all ranges. It's not the greatest up close against some of the rifles and SMGs, but at longer ranges, this is an excellent time to kill. Moving on to headshots, we get a standard headshot multiplier of 1.1, which takes our headshot damage to a 33-26, and basically this just means don't worry about headshots, it's not really going to be helping you with this gun. Getting into our ranges, the GPMG actually drops off to a 5-shot kill at 125 meters. That's extremely far, well beyond what I can show you in this chart here. My chart really only covers up to maybe about 70 meters or so, so extremely long ranges. Even across the beach on Operation Neptune, I don't think you're going to be able to find a line of sight that's 125 meters long. So like I said earlier, this gun is always going to be a 4-shot kill unless you're shooting through cover. As for hardcore, it's basically always going to be a 1-shot kill because it's a 30 damage weapon, and you'll never run into a range where you drop off to 2 shots to kill. Getting into hipfire, the GPMG has standard hipfire for the LMG category. It's right in line with the Lewis and the MG42. As for idle sway, the GPMG has very little idle sway. You can notice it a little bit, but even at very long ranges, this generally won't affect your accuracy. Speaking of accuracy, the GPMG has great recoil characteristics. As you can see here, it kicks up pretty much straight vertically with very little side-to-side sway, which is great because it's extremely easy to control. So far this weapon has looked pretty good, but now let's get into our magazine capacity. Our standard magazine capacity is only 30 rounds, which is very small for an LMG, and we only get 60 rounds in reserve on top of that, which isn't very much, especially when you consider the fire rate of this weapon. With extended mags, we can bump that up to a 45-round magazine with 90 in reserve, which is slightly better, but still not so great for LMGs. And then the biggest issue with this weapon is the reload time. This is the #1 downside to using this weapon. The reload add time, so the amount of time it takes you to reload without the unnecessary animation at the end, is 5.19 seconds, which is very slow. It's pretty much right in line with the other LMGs, but when you consider the fact that this has a very small magazine and it burns through those magazines very quickly, it's a very slow reload time, and this is often going to get you killed. Normally with this series, I don't cover hustle, but for this weapon, I thought I'd make an exception because hustle is a very common choice with this weapon for good reason, because the reload time is really what screws this gun up. With hustle, our reload add time is sped up a little bit at 3.64 seconds. Moving on to some handling and mobility stats, our aim down sight time is quite slow, but standard for LMGs at 350 milliseconds, and it's the same story with the sprint out times. This is also 350 milliseconds, which is quite slow. Our movement speed recently got a buff alongside all of the other LMGs. It's now 92.5%, and our strafe speed while aiming down sight is 38%. So overall with the GPMG, I would say this is an excellent gun if it weren't for that reload time. That is honestly the one stat that just completely destroys this gun and makes me never want to touch it again after recording all the gameplays for this and getting it up to the maximum level. It's got great range, kill potential, and accuracy stats, and if you treat it like an LMG, it can actually be very, very effective for you, but you're going to be finding yourself reloading very often, and it's going to take a very long time to reload as well. Even with extended mags, it just doesn't have the magazine capacity to match the reload time that it has. Same thing goes with hustle. Even though I use hustle all the time with the GPMG, it's kind of annoying because it immediately takes up your one perk that you're allowed to use on your class, and even with that perk, you still reload pretty slow for a gun that only has a 30-round magazine and burns through it really, really quickly. After looking at these stats and comparing it to the MG15, which, like I said at the beginning of the video, they have the exact same fire rate and therefore the exact same time to kill at all ranges, the MG15 is simply a superior weapon in every single way compared to this gun. The only thing I would say that is maybe arguably better with the GPMG is the accuracy. It has more vertical recoil and a little bit less side to side, but the MG15 recently got a buff to its recoil and it's extremely accurate as well. So realistically, there isn't much reason to use the GPMG over the MG15 in this game. You get a lot more rounds in the magazine with the MG15, and basically all the other stats are going to be identical. The one big suggestion that I have with this is I feel like they could buff the reload time a little bit. I realize it's an LMG and they want it to reload slow, they want it to behave like an LMG, but if you're only going to give it a rifle-style magazine of 30 rounds, I feel like they need to find a bit of a middle ground there for the reload speed for it to make sense. If they brought that reload speed somewhere around like 3 seconds, it would still be slower than all of the rifles, but it would also be faster than all of the LMGs, and I think it would give this gun a much better place in this game. So let's move on to a couple example classes I have for you guys. Now keep in mind with this gun, there isn't a whole lot of freedom in my opinion, or at least with how I like to run it. Your basic training is basically going to have to be hustle. You can try using something else if you'd like, but I really hate using this gun with anything but hustle. My division is going to be infantry, and for our attachments we've got quick draw, extended mags, and a reflex sight on this particular setup. Extended mags is excellent. If you have extended mags unlocked, I would highly recommend it with this gun. Quick draw is always pretty much a must-have with LMGs because they aim down sights so slow by default. And the reflex sight isn't necessary since it does have pretty good iron sights, but when you are challenging people at slightly longer ranges, it's nice to have that reflex sight on there. Our secondary is a Luger with extended mags, and our lethal is a sticky grenade. Moving on to the second class I have for you guys here. As you can see, not much changed at all. The only thing I did here is I swapped out that reflex sight for steady aim. I find this gun is actually not too bad in close quarter situations when you're hip firing, especially when you have that steady aim attachment. It's got a great fire rate, and you can often compete with SMGs or rifles up close by simply hip firing. So with that, we're going to wrap up today's gun guide. As always, I'd like to know in the comment section below, what do you guys think of the GPMG? Do you like it enough that you can deal with that reload time, or does that reload time just really kill this gun for you? Also, I'd like to know in the comment section below, which one of the guns would you like me to cover next? Keeping in mind, I've covered quite a few already. I will leave a link to the playlist down below if you've missed any episodes. If you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.